This is Justin Stokes.
Hey Justin, this is Bobby from Fang.
Hey, Bobby, how are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. My sincerest apologies, first off, for not being able to connect with you earlier. I got sidetracked with some other assignments, so the unfortunate nature of journalism and the 2016 dynamic is that you get double booked and you have to do assignments from your car. But I'm caught up now, so my deepest condolences for that, though.
Oh, no problem at all.
So I
No
appreciate.
problem. I'm glad you have some time.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. If there's anything you'd like to add to this, please definitely let me know. And as well, I'm going to hop around on some questions. There's no order for this. I'm going to reorder the questions, as we go along. So,
Okay.
my first question is actually one one sort of held in the realm of promotion. I actually discovered your music through a YouTube advertisement, and I wanted to talk to you about how, in the non-traditional forms of media, how that's positively impacted you. Have you seen a great deal of success for people being driven to your website or to your social media through that ad placement?
Um, yeah, I was. You're referring to the YouTube ad?
Yes, sir. For the "I Crave" single.
Yeah, it was mainly just to generate interest in that video. Just so people that hadn't heard of the band in the past, I thought it'd be a good way to reach out and find people that might be interested in what we're doing. Um, so YouTube, it was actually really just an experiment. I had no idea how effective an ad would be on YouTube or really even how they worked. I had to sort of investigate and research a little bit, but it's definitely great for driving traffic to your videos. That's for sure. I haven't tried, um, sending people to a website or any other site. It was mainly just to get a little more exposure for the video
No, I
and the
got you.
song.
I got you. So it was specifically for that, not necessarily for the album as a whole or any other project. No, that makes sense. Let's talk about.
Well, I figured people would if they saw the video and liked it or liked the song, then they might investigate further and and check out the rest of the record.
Sure, sure. On the subject of the record, Daylong's Secret comes after the success of several EPs and singles that, from what I've seen, were received pretty well. Let's talk about the musical journey here. What can you share with readers of AXS.com about the evolution of Daylong's Secret?
Daylong's Secret is it's sort of the Zuzu Fang long time coming full length record because when I first put the band together, we started. I recorded some songs on my own and put a band together to play it live, and we right away started getting interest from TV shows and music supervisors that wanted to place the songs, some of the songs in TV shows. And so I was always quickly cobbling, but each of these music supervisors said, well, you have to have a release. You can't just, take one of your songs, put it in a show, and then that's it. There needs to be some sort of release around it. So the first batch of songs that I wrote, I quickly pushed together into an EP, and then a few months later, there was interest in some of the newer songs, so I quickly pushed together another EP, all the while wanting to make a full-length record. And then over the years, as sort of the way people consume music, doing a full-length kind of seemed like maybe a thing of the past. I wasn't really sure if people would be interested in sitting down and hearing a full album nowadays because of the way streaming sites kind of exist and they kind of push you in a way that if you hear something you don't like in 30 seconds or so, you're on to the next song. And I thought, all right, well, let me just kind of get the definitive Zuzu thing full length together, and it took some time because there were all these other um, opportunities that came along the way, whether they were remix EPs or contributing to compilation records, tribute records, just a lot of sort of things got in the way and sidetracked. So I finally decided to take a good amount of time and get a full length together. And while we were putting it together, we kind of didn't want to disappear for too long. So the song that was first mixed, which was Noir State Beach, we decided, well, let's float one song out in a video and see how that does. And that got a really great response. So we kind of, once that happened, we started to get attention from a lot of major agencies and management companies and record labels, and spent a lot of time, sort of another distraction, finishing the record. But we were talking with a lot of different companies, and that kind of slowed down the process of getting the record done. So we then just kind of floated out another song and video and kind of took our time. And finally, now where we are now, the full length is out, and I Crave being the third single, even though it's kind of been a long period since the first single was released.
No, I understand. Forgive me, I'm sorry. My apartment complex, apparently they picked the best time to trim the hedges, so I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. That happens to me all the time.
It's like that, or when you're doing a video shoot and there's like an airplane that just chooses to fly overhead for some dumbass reason. My sincerest. This album,
I can't hear it. So as long as you can handle it, I'm fine. I can't even hear it.
I appreciate you, you're a gentleman. Going back to it, with Zuzu Fang, this album, Daylong's Secret, according to Pop Matters, I believe, touches on issues of death, loss, and thwarted love. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, because you said you were fighting a few things here. You were fighting what you perceived to be the sort of the changing the way people listen, but also with darker, heavier themes. Did you view that as a challenge to get people to listen to, or do you think that people instantly took to the thematic content of your music, your tracks?
Well, I think that's where something like the YouTube ad comes in handy, because the darker themes weren't really necessarily by design. I've always just been attracted to darker music because I feel like it's a fun escape, and it's an easy way to kind of play make believe, so to speak, with darker themes.
Really?
I imagine if we're living a very, very dark and sad life, you might not take the time to put it all together on a full length album. So for me, I'm a pretty optimistic and happy person. So it's the dark thing was really more of a way of kind of fantasy land, so to speak. As far as drawing more fans because of the darker themes, not really. I just felt like it was fun. I just felt like it was fun to write music that kind of provokes you a little bit, but without hitting you over the head. That something like death metal or something like that might do, or like goth music that is very, very specifically designed to make a dark statement. I think with this music, lyrically, there are a lot of dark themes, but I think those are the themes that people kind of experience all the time.
Right.
And it's sort of hopefully a companion piece to anyone who's feeling some of those emotions throughout their day or life.
No, I got you. No, I understand. That makes sense. And this album comes after your previous membership in the Warlocks. So this, I'd like to pick your brain for, if you don't mind, about that dynamic. Were you able to take this in a completely different direction from your previous efforts with the Warlocks? What can you share about the relationship?
Well,
Go ahead.
The Warlocks, they do a very specific sound, and it's a very specific style, and I thought I kind of went as far as I could with that sort of thing, and I wanted to just try something where there weren't really any kind of rules or a day-long secret. I think for some people, the casual listener, it might be a little bit odd because it goes from riff rock guitar type stuff into very electronic stuff into atmospheric sound and almost cinematic filmic kind of sound. And with the Warlocks, that doesn't really fit. They're a very guitar bass drum oriented thing. And this, I felt like Zuzu Fang would just allow me to stretch out more creatively and really do whatever I wanted, so to speak.
So this comes at a sort of not only an artistic experiment, but a way you were able to remove any parameters from the dialogue. This is the product of not being restricted in a way. Is that fair? That this is something that's totally on your
Yeah,
terms.
exactly. I mean, of all the bands that I've been in the past, it was very obvious. You knew what you were getting into immediately from sort of the first note. It was either a psychedelic rock thing, or it was purely experimental, or it was going way back, like more of a hardcore kind of thing. So, when you heard, when you the bands, those bands sort of already had a design, and with Zuzu Fang, I thought, um, whatever appears to be good is good. There was no saying like, well, this doesn't fit in this sort of genre, and that could be kind of a turnoff to some fans. Some people could say, if they listen to our music from the very beginning, they could say, well, these songs sound so much different than what you're doing now. And for me, that's really just the fun of playing music. Um, I've always thought that music, as a creative person, is sort of like the opportunity to do whatever you want, regardless of what anybody thinks. And if people like it and they support it and they respond to it, then that's just a bonus. I mean, I'd like as many people as possible to hear our music, but I'd also like to evolve. And I think that can definitely be polarizing for people, because some people might hear an older song like Your Way, for example, from the 7 Days Now EP, which is a very sort of Massive Attack, Portishead, electronic kind of thing. But then hear a song like A Great Night from the new album, which is it's a 10-minute epic song that goes from completely atmospheric to a very My Bloody Valentine heavy guitar based thing at the end. So, if I was just doing the original, if I was still writing the same exact kind of music that I was doing from the first EP, I think I'd be kind of bored, right? A little bored with it at this point. I kind of find songwriting to be equally daunting and exhilarating, because I just never know. Sometimes I could sit down at an instrument and nothing comes out, and I feel like, well, I guess I've contributed everything I can contribute to music, and then the next day I'll turn around and spend 8 hours completely inspired and creative, and think, yeah, this is exactly the direction what I'm supposed to be doing.
I get
And I guess that kind of stems from just loving all types of music in every genre. I feel like there's good music in every genre. So whether it's Stravinsky on one end, or early Metallica on the other end, I can find a similarity. The things that excited me about a Stravinsky piece could be the same things that excite me about something that I would hear on a Misfits record or something. And I feel like my favorite music is music that sort of takes you on a journey. And I think a good example of that would be maybe Massive Attack, or Black Sabbath. Some of these bands where you start in one place, and by the time the song is done, you're in a completely different place. And I know that another band that I like to use as an example of that, and they're kind of not really that well regarded nowadays, but Jane's Addiction and their first three records to me are like three of the best records ever made because each song it takes you on your own journey, and like I said, where you start in the beginning is not the same place you end up at the end, and they're not bound by any sort of or groups like Black Sabbath and Jane's Addiction and Massive Attack aren't bound by any kind of rules, and I think ultimately their music is that much more enriching.
Okay.
Because you just sort of you're taken on a ride, and the cool thing about music like that is sometimes it's not the right time to listen to it. You don't feel like going on that ride, like with the Doors, for example. I love the Doors, but sometimes I just don't want to hear it because it sounds
You
I
mean
don't
you?
know, my mood or whatever isn't right at that time. But other times I'll listen to it. It's the most creative, inspiring, and exciting music I've heard, even though I've heard it millions of times. So I tried to incorporate some of that into the music, and I'm now finding that a lot of like what we were talking about earlier about the consumption of music. A lot of the time, people don't have the time or the attention span to sit through something that will evolve over 4 or 5 minutes. They want to be hit with something in 30 seconds that has a hook, and that hook is repeated throughout 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and then they're on to the next thing. So that's part of the challenge of having a band that's really open creatively.
Right, but it seems like you're also able to, in the age of niche, where people's tastes are becoming more, I guess, exploratory. That it seems like you have a better, like there's a trade-off. You don't have the paradox of abundance problem as much. You don't have people watching ABC, CBS, or NBC. We have Netflix and we have Hulu. So it's like it seems
Right.
like in a way that you have. I mean, forgive me. I'm not trying to tell your business as an artist or anything. Please don't think that. But it seems like from a non-musician's perspective that you would get more people who are loyal to your band, like you're trading quantity
Right.
for quality. Is that a fair assessment of what's going on?
Absolutely no. You make a great point that with the internet, with the internet, it's enabled us to be able to find the very specific things that we like in music um, and all types of entertainment. And so I guess maybe I need to improve my marketing skills to reach those people. But I also feel like it's a double-edged sword because while the opportunity for exposure is like never before, there's also a bigger glut of music out there that isn't necessarily great, but is getting attention for other reasons than the merit of the music. Um, so I definitely think you know you can you can find those people that will love what you're doing, but going back to sort of the style of the music, I think it changes throughout the course of the record that it's difficult to determine who that audience is exactly because some people, a song like Noir State Beach, which is almost like a riff rocker. I don't want to say hard rock, but a riff rock song. But then you get to the chorus, which is a much more dreamy, almost Cocteau Twins, '80s inspired kind of beautiful part. So I don't know if that's going to be a turnoff to someone that likes just the guitar riffing stuff or what. But I think it also the cool thing is that it forces because there's all this opportunity and exposure, it forces songwriters to just become better writers because the public is going to determine whether how successful your songs can be, not whether they're good or bad, but if if you write something that people can relate to, you can certainly galvanize an enormous audience. But one of the things that I discovered through once we finished the record and then spent a bunch of time talking to agents and managers and labels and all those industry people, I found that there were people that absolutely loved our music, um, at companies that I never thought would like it. I mean, like big pop management companies with huge multi-platinum superstars as in their roster, and for some reason they liked what we were doing. But most of our relationship with some of these um, potential companies was based around our social media numbers and whether if we had 100,000 Facebook fans or 10,000 Facebook fans or that almost became as important as the music, which I felt to be a little bit discouraging because there were people that loved every song on the record but would say, in order for us to work with you, you need about 10,000 more Facebook followers. So it's kind of a long circle here, getting back to the beginning of your question. Um, yes, you can definitely find and market to those people that like what you're doing, and those people are ultimately going to have to say on whether your streaming numbers go up and your Twitter follower numbers go up and that sort of thing. So you're kind of dealing with two separate worlds. And my thought with Zuzu Fang is, again, there really are no rules. So we're going to write stuff that appeals to us first, and then hopefully find that audience that you're talking about, and introduce them to everything that we're doing.
Sure. It sounds like people need to get more exploratory with their listening tastes at the end of the day, too. And not rely on metrics like Facebook likes, which can be purchased, or YouTube downloads, which don't show a complete listening experience, from what I understand. So.
Yeah, it's a strange, it's a strange sort of way to determine whether a band is or an artist is what their value is. And I think it just shows that while everyone talks about the record industry changing, it really hasn't, because major labels haven't gone away. In fact, they're probably more powerful than ever. And the idea was that the internet was going to give all of these independent artists the opportunity to be on the same playing field as a major label artist. But that's not really true, because when you have the machine of marketing and publicity behind you, it's definitely going to give you a step up. And if someone is if someone in one of these companies is made aware of your music, and you don't have as many followers or likes that sort of fit what they believe to be a profitable number, then they might just pass over you and move on.
It seems like
it's an interesting scenario, and I agree that I think the internet has helped in getting people to widen their tastes and their interests, and are exposed to newer music they probably never would have discovered without the internet. So it's good and bad.
I hear you. Real quick, I just want to ask this, just for my own personal interest. Are you all are you all currently on tour, or no? And are you coming to Nashville?
We would love to come to Nashville. We're kind of figuring out what we're going to do now. We're talking with booking agencies about what the next step should be. The record is it just came out, so we're still kind of working on videos and other promotional stuff, but we hope to get to Nashville for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much of it. I just want to say I think it's really cool that you work with I think Mikey Shoes and Elaine Johannes. Those guys are exceptional musicians, and it sounds like you're in great company for the exploration of new sounds, new aesthetics, new themes in music. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I mean, having Michael Schumann play bass and sing on a bunch of songs on the record really kind of stepped things up, because we had ideas, but he was able to kind of take the idea and really take it to another level, which is what we were really looking for. Certain songs needed, for example, really great bass playing in a particular style, and that's something that Michael was able to do immediately. Like he picked it up instantly. Um, and same with Alan. You know, he has a really good sense of all different types of music, so he was able to lend a good a good ear to what we were doing.
And an endless eye.
Exactly.
Bad joke. I'm
Exactly.
sorry. It's an awful.
That's true.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'd love to see you in Nashville. I will send you the link when it goes live, probably over the weekend. So
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the interest in taking the time to talk to me about all this.
for sure. Like I said, I love the album. That's why I reached out. So otherwise, you have a good one, man. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks. You too.
All right, bye.